Why would a company that makes a medical device suddenly pivot their business to cryptocurrency speculation? Today, we're going to take a look at brand new reporting from my stat colleagues Casey Ross, Lizzy Lawrence, Bob Herman, and Tara Banow. Semler Scientific is a company founded by a cardiologist with a mission to help catch a very serious vascular disease. Recently, though, under the leadership of the founder's son, the company has decided to bet its future on Bitcoin. The whole saga illustrates a multitude of issues inherent to the US healthcare system. And there's a surprise twist in the reporting process that I could hardly believe, so stay tuned for that. My name is Alex Hogan. I'm the senior multimedia producer here at Stat, and I've been at Stat since we first launched almost 10 years ago. Every week, I'll be going behind the scenes of the biggest Stat stories, explaining important topics in the healthcare space, covering the most important events in life sciences, and talking to some experts across the areas that Stat covers. So please like and subscribe if what I'm explaining sounds interesting to you. It's a little click, but it's a big deal for us. Anyway, take your diamond hands and huddle onto your hats, because this one's a wild ride. Semler's flagship product is called QuantaFlo, and it has an admirable goal, which is to catch peripheral artery disease, or PAD, in patients before it progresses. PAD is a very serious condition that affects blood flow to the extremities and other body parts, and it can lead to limb loss or even death. But how effective QuantaFlo actually is, that's debatable. It hasn't been shown to be significantly better at finding PAD than what had been considered the gold standard test, which is a test called the ankle brachial index that had been around for years. And some patients and medical professionals told Stat that misdiagnoses from QuantaFlo have led to significant distress, wasted time, and wasted money. But the product was a significant financial success for Semler. In 2018, they made around $5 million in net profit, and then almost $21 million in 2023. And between 2018 and 2021, their stock price increased more than tenfold, from $8 to $150. This success was largely driven by the fact that insurance companies like UnitedHealth could get paid more to cover patients with the diagnoses that QuantaFlo helped generate. But this period of essentially printing money wouldn't last forever, so Semler pivoted to Bitcoin. Stat reporters Casey Ross and Lizzy Lawrence have been reporting on UnitedHealth for quite a while now. In fact, last year they were both Polk Award winners for their series investigating UnitedHealth Group's business practices. They're also just super rad colleagues, and I spoke with them earlier about their new story. All right, Casey and Lizzy, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
Can you talk about how coding for more diagnoses diagnoses? Okay, thank you. Could you talk about how coding for more diagnoses can generate more money from the U.S. government via Medicare Advantage, for insurers and companies like Semler?
Basically, insurers are incentivized through Medicare Advantage to test patients, whether in their homes, through house visits, or in United's case, since they own a lot of Optum clinics, through their clinics to test patients. And when they find more diagnoses, they're able to submit these diagnoses to the government and get reimbursed by Medicare. So in the case of peripheral artery disease, the code that QuantaFlo would bring was peripheral vascular disease unspecified. That would bring roughly $3,000 to United and to other insurers once they submitted that diagnosis to the government.
So peripheral artery disease was a particularly profitable diagnosis. Is that right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a very squishy category too, like peripheral artery disease unspecified. It's literally squishy, it's unspecified sort of presence of this illness. So by the definition of the code, it's gameable because you can sort of find a level of disease that may not be clinically significant or meaningful in any way to the treatment of the patient, but that nonetheless allows you to document it so that you can get this $3,000 for every patient you diagnose.
Just to put a finer point on it here, QuantaFlo isn't really a diagnostic tool though, right? It's more of a screening tool. That seems pretty problematic if you're using it to justify these particularly lucrative diagnostic codes, right?
Right. Yeah. For the purposes of these insurance companies, a QuantaFlo test is the diagnosis, but that is not how the FDA cleared this tool. It's meant to be an aid. Nevertheless, they're getting money for it. And like Casey said, it's a very squishy category.
It's a tool that can detect a disease. And so, you would have to kind of think about, well, do you use it for diagnosis? do you use it for screening? And what the insurance companies were doing was using it for screening. But the problem with that is that this device is highly sensitive, meaning if you have the disease, it's going to pick it up. But it's not very specific, meaning that if it flags you for the disease, it's possible that it's a false positive and that it's overcalling the instance of the illness. So when you deploy as a screening tool something that's sensitive but not very specific, then you're going to pick up a whole bunch of disease that doesn't exist.
When CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is the federal agency that oversees how taxpayer dollars are spent on healthcare, made a change that was more or less, kind of an existential threat to Semler's business. What change did CMS make?
So CMS removed the code that was very closely linked with QuantaFlo and Semler Scientific's entire business model, which was peripheral vascular disease unspecified. The removal of that code from the risk adjustment formula at CMS cratered Semler Scientific's entire business because its business was predicated on the use of QuantaFlo to bill underneath that code. So when it's removed, Semler is suddenly in a very, very precarious situation.
So during this period of turmoil, was there disagreement within the company of like what direction to take to deal with this, crisis they have now that they're kind of the backbone of their business is being put into question by this change in policy by CMS? They
start to invest in different medical products and companies. There was like a digital diabetes company that they started to invest in and various other smattering of investments, none of which worked out. And then you see, when Eric Semler comes on, it's more financial managers that are on the board. And that's when they turn instead to Bitcoin. And then they're fully in that lane.
But how is this a business? It seems like they're like, why would we deal with all the headaches and the regulators and everything for a medical device company when we could just buy a bunch of Bitcoin and hope the price goes up? Is that it?
It is most distinctly not a business. It is completely unbusinesslike in any way. This is just speculation. It's just speculation on a digital currency. They're just making bets with money on a bit of a flyer, according to a lot of the skeptics of cryptocurrency in general and Bitcoin as well. So if you went to a large public company with a real business and that was doing well, and you said, hey, let's put all this in Bitcoin, they would tell you to get the hell out of their office because they're interested in running a business that they've built that has valuable products, that have demonstrable value, that people care about, that create value in the community.
And that's a good pivot to my next question is from what you've seen from Semler lately, on their website or what they've said to investors, how much of their attention seems to be devoted to Bitcoin versus the medical device QuantaFlo, which is ostensibly the reason their business exists?
I mean, I don't know if we can say it better than Eric Semler himself, who said on a recent earnings call that we are a Bitcoin first company. Their healthcare strategy must complement the Bitcoin strategy. So Bitcoin is absolutely their highest priority now. And, they're basically just saying, yeah, we don't care about making a good product that helps people catch peripheral artery disease early. We care about making money. And that calls into question their intentions from the beginning. I mean, if you can make that dramatic a pivot, what does this mean about the product and about this vision that you had?
So when you were reaching out to UnitedHealth for comment, Casey, on your reporting, you received something unexpected. What did they accidentally send you?
Yeah, so I was reaching out to them to get comment for the story that we're talking about now. And part of that story was, getting them to respond to some concerns that were raised, by patients and by different clinicians that we spoke to that were treated by UnitedHealth or were involved in treating patients under UnitedHealth. So they were going to send me a waiver, to allow the company to talk about the case of a particular patient. And instead, they sent me a strategic document, which was the talking points that they had developed behind the scenes to deal with shareholders for their shareholder meeting, that had a lot of questions about the company. So instead of this waiver, I get this confidential, privileged document that they sent to me in apparent error.
And just like, what's it like as a reporter to get, accidentally receive this privileged and confidential document from a company you've been investigating?
I mean, it was a stunning thing. I mean, you can't believe it. You're like, what, how could this happen? Like, okay. And I look at it and I see the top of it is marked confidential and privileged. And to a reporter, you're like, okay, well, click. I'm going to take a look at this. And so, I looked at it and was really quite surprised to find that they had sent me this document. It seemed like a pretty unbelievable mistake for the company to make, given that we've been investigating the company now for a couple of years. So yeah, we immediately, started looking at the document and what was contained within it, and decided we had to write a story about it.
What was contained in the document that you found, particularly noteworthy?
Well, it was basically just kind of, talking points about how they would respond to various government investigations and, kind of plain language, unvarnished statements about how it had, failed to properly manage certain aspects of its business. There were, references to, media investigations and, if the shareholders press us on this, then this is what we'll say, kind of thing. So you could see like this attempt to, steer the conversation, to shape the opinion of shareholders, to sort of get them to adopt the company's narrative. And in particular, there was a big section focused, for example, on executive compensation. And you can see that the company is trying to, really build support for its approach to executive compensation, which has been controversial. And it turned out that 40% of the company's shareholders or thereabouts voted against the compensation package. So they sort of anticipated there was going to be this backlash, and they were right about that. And so you can see their kind of behind the scenes machination about how they're going to attempt to deal with this.
So I was working when we got that document came in and you sent it to me, and I was pulling some excerpts from the document that we put in the story to make some graphics for the story. And for whatever reason, this talking point really jumped out at me. It was quote, "The vast majority of Americans' experience is simple and straightforward." I mean, I don't have any polling in front of me, but I would imagine most Americans would not say their experience with insurance companies and healthcare largely is, quote, simple and straightforward. How do you think this whole saga with Semler kind of exemplifies the frustrations that, many Americans have with insurers or, the healthcare system writ large?
Yeah, I mean, patients have no idea that any of the stuff that we're talking about here is going on behind the scenes, that there's all this financial machinery that's churning, in the background of their care that really bears heavily upon the legitimacy of, the treatment recommendations they're getting, the testing that they're subjected to. If you're just a patient out there and your doctor comes in and says, okay, well, I need you to take this test, you take the test, and you have no idea of the financial implication of that for the person who's giving you that test. And you don't really have any way to protect yourself against the incentives that are embedded in the system.
I just think that it's a really clear example of, especially with the recent pivot to Bitcoin, of the greed that exists among many players in our healthcare system, and the fact that, in fact, we know companies exist. They have to make money. That's part of their mandate. But it's, very often these profit incentives get in the way of getting patients actual care, and patients are really frustrated by that, as they should be, and it harms them.
Thanks again to Casey and Lizzy. It's always great to catch up with you both. And for more on this whole Semler Bitcoin saga, check out the full story on statnews.com. All right, so I gotta show you guys this. When I was downloading the interview files from our recording platform, I was offered this AI cartoon interpretation of our interview. Lizzy called it an unsolicited Ghibli-fication, which is just perfect. I don't know why they felt we would want this. I also don't know what video of Casey it saw. But anyway, I'm going to use this as a segue. A future episode I have in the works is about the use of AI in healthcare. We'll learn how AI like the one that decided to portray Casey Ross as an anime 12-year-old with hockey hair, is being used to diagnose patients and make insurance coverage decisions and more. So again, please like and subscribe. We'll be back next week. Same stat time, same stat channel.